Thank you for being invited to be here today. Sandra and I are always glad to be with you. We were honored to have Zippy and Bonnie as part of the delegation that we took to China, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. But first of all, let me say to those who have organized this gathering, the University of Georgia College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, and Georgia Southern University's Division of Continuing Education. Thank you to both of those institutions. It is always nice to see our institutions of higher learning working together in a cooperative fashion, and this is a prime example of that, and I thank them for that. And certainly a big thank you to Zippy Duval and the Georgia Farm Bureau and others who have sponsored this event today, as well as the state agencies that are represented here. And they, of course, work cooperatively with many of you in their functions to serve you personally and your businesses and the state of Georgia. I just got back from Panama last night, yesterday afternoon late. We went to visit and see the progress at the Panama Canal. Now, I think all of you understand that here in Savannah, and literally all across the state of Georgia, we are very focused on being able to deepen the harbor and the channel leading to the Savannah port. And the reason for that is that very, very large vessels are going to be coming through the new expanded Panama Canal. And we got a great tour of that. We had the opportunity to meet with the chairperson, who is the administrator of the port there and the Panama Canal Authority itself. And they are making great progress. It is a huge undertaking. And even though they are a little behind their own personal timetable, I didn't object to that because we're a little behind ours too. They anticipate now that they will have it finished and operational by the mid-2015 time frame. Now, we are making progress on the permissions that we had to achieve. In fact, some time back, we received what was called the Record of Decision. That was the sign-off by all of the federal agencies that had a say-so in this project. And now we are waiting, and literally, hopefully, within the month or early next month, we will have the last administrative hurdle overcome. And that is a provision in what is known as the WRDA bill, which is the bill that has all the major water projects throughout the United States. We'll have a provision in it that is passed the Senate that will raise the authorized spending level for the Port of Savannah project to reflect the current estimated cost of that project. It is a technical hurdle that we have to overcome before the federal government will give the sign-off for putting their federal dollars into the project. But we're pushing very hard. Now, if you want to know, well, why is this such an important project? The statistics are rather overwhelming. In fact, the Port of Savannah has done incredible things over the last several decades. It is the fourth largest, and I am told perhaps when you have it as a consolidated port, maybe the largest container port in the United States. And it's certainly been the fastest growing port in our country. And more than 40% of the United States population relies on the Port of Savannah as a point of import or export of products that affect their lives or affect their businesses. And of course, agriculture, being the #1 industry in the state of Georgia, is vitally connected to the port. Georgia's oldest and largest industry, being agriculture, has about a $71.1 billion economic impact on Georgia every year. And I feel like I'm repeating Gary Black's stump speech on the campaign trail when he was running for the Agriculture Commissioner's position, because he said these things repeatedly, and they're true and they're impressive. 1 out of every 7 Georgians works in agriculture, forestry, or some related field. And 2/3 of our state's counties have agriculture as one of their top 2 industries. So agriculture helps our state remain balanced, and it also helps the United States itself remain balanced in terms of imports and exports. I recently read an article from the University of Georgia's website that claims that nearly 40% of the exports going through the Port of Savannah were agricultural products. Now, we have to make sure that we continue this trend of that kind of growth pattern because it is essential to the growth of agriculture in our state. Now, these larger vessels are indeed huge, and the new Panama Canal that is going to accommodate them is truly one of those man-made miracles, and they will be celebrating next year the 100th anniversary of the original Panama Canal. It is still operational, and in listening to their descriptions of it over a 100-year period, even though they continue to spend a large amount of money every year on maintenance, it is still in remarkably good shape. But it cannot accommodate those larger Super Post-Panamax vessels. They gave us a visual description of how large those vessels are and the locks that really constitute the major portion of the canal. They gave an illustration that if you took the Eiffel Tower and laid it on its side, that's how long you would have to have a lock in order to accommodate one of those vessels just being put in one of the locks so that you can either raise it or lower it as it moves through the Panama Canal system. So it's a huge project for them. It is a huge project that will impact us dramatically here in the state of Georgia. And we can't just stand idly by. And I don't intend to stand idly by. When you have a $5.50 return on every dollar that you invest in this expansion, that's just a good investment for all of Georgia. Now, not everybody, I'm sure, in this audience today is from the Savannah area. And we are going to continue to work throughout our state to make sure that the other parts of the state can take advantage of the opportunities that the port offers and will continue to offer, especially with the larger vessels. For example, I signed a memorandum of understanding along with the Georgia Ports Authority and the Cordial Intermodal Services just fairly recently that will ensure a direct 200-mile rail route to the Port of Savannah. This rail route will connect Cordial and will serve not only that southwest part of Georgia, but also South Alabama and parts of the Florida Panhandle to give them by rail direct access to the Port of Savannah. Now, we know that will expand the operational opportunities for many in the field of agriculture to go, if they're closer to the Cordial inland port, to place their products in a container or in other vessels for purposes of transport, rather than having to have direct route by truck to the Savannah Garden City terminal. So we're going to continue to explore opportunities to expand the availability of the port to many other parts of our state. Now, we are continuing to try to grow our state economically. And my goal is to make Georgia the #1 state in the nation in which to do business. And we are moving in that direction very rapidly. For example, we are eliminating the sales tax on energy that is used for manufacturing. And we've already seen great results from that announcement and for that policy change that the General Assembly passed. And I think Senator Carter and his other colleagues, some of whom were across the river at an event over there of economic development that I addressed immediately before I came here. We recognize that this is one of those things that would give us a competitive advantage. And as a result of that, we are seeing growth of manufacturing in our state. As we were in the process of considering this change in our tax laws. We had an announcement from Caterpillar that they were moving a plant from Japan to the Athens, Georgia area. And that is a huge transition. And they will, by their own indications, use the Port of Savannah. In fact, I was told initially that they were expecting to export about 40% of the equipment that they will be manufacturing in the Athens area, that they will export it, and hopefully that will all come through the Savannah port. So everything that we do in some way or other generally has some relationship to the port, either by way of an export point of demarcation for finished products, or as an import facility for raw materials coming in. Now, we've also, of course, taken some tax changes on the personal income tax side. For all intents and purposes, Georgia has eliminated the marriage tax penalty. We think that's the right thing to do. It is family friendly, and it makes it a better state for people to live and to work and be able to keep more of their own money to take care of themselves and their families. And as you may know, last year we expanded the agricultural exemptions through what is referred to as the GATE program. And these exemptions range from things that were already exempt, such as equipment parts, to energy. Those did not exist. They are new, the parts and energy used in agriculture. But also, it kept the exemptions on feed and fertilizer, things that were already in the law. And we think that this, too, is a step that gives our farmers a competitive advantage in the field of agriculture. If you go to any other country, especially countries like China, you recognize that there is a really potentially large market for food products. And Georgia being one of those states that can supply that, I think it offers us great opportunities. China is the world's second largest economy, and it is a dynamic country. Zippy and the others on the trip and I witnessed that firsthand. Georgia, of course, as you probably know, leads the United States in the exports of poultry and wood products to China. And that, of course, boosts our state's agricultural economy and also helps the Chinese with the delivery of these products. We as a state lead the nation, and most countries, we lead them as well in the production of broiler chickens. And we have a number of other key agricultural products that are high on the export list: pecans, peanuts, and cotton, for example. And we are a great state in producing all of those. Now, I am convinced that what Georgia produces, and produces very efficiently, the world will buy if we give them and afford them the opportunity to do so. Now, for those of you who are using the Georgia Grown label, I think you've made a wise decision. It is a label that will assure the public that the products that they're buying are of highest quality. And it's another way for us to continue to build the label and the brand of Georgia agriculture. I thank the Commissioner for his untiring efforts in that regard. I think it will continue to be one of those ways of promoting Georgia's agriculture. And for those of you who are in the audience that may represent other countries, first of all, on behalf of the almost 10 million citizens of the state of Georgia, welcome to the state of Georgia. We're pleased that you are here. We're also pleased that you are interested in what we have to offer. And we are interested in what you have to offer. Our state is one of those growing states, one of the fastest growing states in the country, and we expect that to continue. We are putting in place policies that are business friendly, that are family friendly, and you combine that with the great geographic diversity of our state, from the mountains in the north to the vast fertile lands of middle and south Georgia and the timberlands that lie all in between, to the coastal area of our great state. I have repeated this many times that we had a contest several years ago in Gainesville and Hall County to come up with the best slogan. Now, you may know, when you hear the slogan, you may wonder how we got some of the ingredients of the slogan. You have to keep in mind that the majority of Lake Lanier, which is the most visited Corps of Engineers lake in the country, is in the Hall County area, and that the state of Georgia owns what is known as Lake Lanier Islands, that are islands out in Lake Lanier. And the theme that won and the motto that won was this: from the islands to the highlands, we've got it all. You could very well apply that same slogan to the entire state of Georgia. I suppose we should add in there, from the islands to the highlands to the coast, we have it all. Thank you for having me here today.